Welcome back to a new season of the Bulldog broadcast on Field of 68 Media Network. I'm your host, Dan Dickow, former player, current analyst for a number of different networks, but excited about what we are going to be covering with this year's Gonzaga Bulldogs team in 25-26. Tons of uh, different options and ways that we can kind of talk about, analyze, and look at this new roster, essentially. This approach to recruiting due to NIL, the schedule, both non-conference and WCC season, and kind of talk about what the expectations might be. So in today's first episode, we'll be talking about the non-conference schedule, one of the most difficult non-conference schedules that I can remember that Coach Few has put together and his staff. It is an absolute bear. But first off, we want to say thank you to our sponsors of the Bulldog broadcast. McGilvery Environmental. They do a tremendous job with earthwork, site prep, and different things, all the way from Western Montana, Northern Idaho, which is where they are based, in Eastern Washington. If you need any land work done, don't hesitate to reach out to Kip and his crew. They do a tremendous job. Also want to thank Cooney's Thai, uh, one of the best restaurants in all of Spokane. My family and I get takeout there all the time. We stop in, have a great meal. They do a tremendous job. Cooney's Thai up in the Wandermere area on the north side of Spokane. Check them out. They are phenomenal. I also want to thank ICCU. They are tremendous in supporting different efforts and different projects, organizations in the Spokane area as they continue to grow their footprint, in the banking industry here in Eastern Washington. And then Denena and Associates, a tremendous family law office. You have any questions? They can help you out. Tremendous group of people over there at Denena and Associates. So please support our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors. And if you have interest in sponsoring the Bulldog broadcast, don't hesitate to reach out. But back to what today's topic is, what we're going to really kind of break down in our first episode of the season is this non-conference that Coach Few and staff has put together. I think is tremendous. You look at 7 teams a season ago that were in the NCAA tournament, a couple others from essentially power conferences that are also going to give you a test. McGilvery Environmental can handle any of your construction needs, specializing in new construction, repairs, residential and commercial asphalt paving, excavation, environmental mediation, and hazardous waste. Reach out to Kip McGilvery at McGilvery Environmental today at 208 556 6384 for your free estimate. Um, and then, you look at the timing of some of these games. It's going to give you kind of that cadence once you get to the West Coast Conference play, where it's essentially one day in between, or the conference tournament where you could play back-to-back days, and then obviously the NCAA tournament where it's every other day cadence. But the first things first, you look at the craziness in the kennel. Again, it's always that first weekend in October. It's hard to believe it's almost here. October 4th is the craziness in the kennel, slated for 4 p.m. They haven't came out with the details yet, but if it's anything like they've done in years past, obviously, they're introducing their team, they're sharing kind of a vision and generating excitement for this upcoming season, and then they'll split the players into 2 teams, and you can't really gather much out of how they split the teams. They try to get them as even as possible, so that it's kind of a game type atmosphere. So for a lot of these guys, it's going to be the first time in a Gonzaga uniform in front of a crowd. So this is always one of the things that they do to generate that buzz for the fans, but also to kind of get some of those early season jitters out for a lot of the new guys. But We'll talk more about the roster, the breakdown, some of the interesting things to look at in upcoming episodes. But really, as mentioned, want to break down this non-conference schedule. And again, I think it's a complete bear when you look at who they're playing with and against. First exhibition. It's against a non-Division One opponent, Division Two, Western Oregon. I know you slate that one as a win, and rightfully so. But there's challenging exhibition games, and then there's kind of, I guess you could call them payoff exhibition games where you know you're probably going to go in with a 60, 70 point win. And we've all seen that from the Gonzaga perspective in the past with some of the exhibition games there's been. But Western Oregon's unique. They play in a really good Division two conference called the GNAC. About 6, 7 years ago, Western Oregon was actually ranked in the top three in the country. I believe they were undefeated, or maybe had one loss going into the NCAA tournament at the Division two level, where I believe they lost in the Final Four. So it is a good program. They're just outside Salem, Oregon, so just about an hour south of Portland. So that's game one. Game one or two, really just call it game one of the regular season. Texas Southern, a program and a team that anybody that follows college basketball closely knows enough about, that they have been in the NCAA tournament a number of years out of the SWAC. Gonzaga's played them at home a number of times over the last 10, 12 years. And, as with a lot of the other teams in the SWAC, based on, financial constraints and challenges, they will play one of the biggest non-conference, most difficult non-conference, most travel heavy non-conferences of any college team in the country. And so Texas Southern will come in opening night on November 3rd. And right off the bat, after that, things get difficult for Gonzaga. And again, I think in this new age and era of college basketball, if you're not in a quote power conference right now, which Gonzaga, when they shift to the new pack, whatever it ends up being called, I don't know if you're going to be able to call them a power conference right away. They'll be just a tier below, the SEC, Big Ten, and uh, Big 12, whatnot, in regards to being labeled a power conference. But I do think if it all shapes up the way it's looking like, it will be a step above the WCC. But they get going on November 8th against Oklahoma here in Spokane. And Oklahoma is a team that, they had some struggles last year, but they had a terrific point guard in Jeremiah Fears that he's not there. Went to the NBA as an early entrant after his freshman year. He'll be with the Pelicans, but Porter Moser is one of the best offensive minds in college basketball. I remember when he was at Loyola Chicago, I had a couple games of theirs years back, and the spacing that Oklahoma had played with last year, watching them and looking back at his teams at Loyola Chicago, they create problems, and they find the one or two initiators on the offensive end of the floor that can make the correct reads within that space and make life difficult. So obviously they're out of the SEC, so the returners are going to be battle tested. They're going to be looking to get off on the right foot early in the college season. So Oklahoma is the first of
the world's leading immersive basketball training experience that combines in-person skill development with digital gamification and virtual competition. At Shoot 360, you will train with our coaches, measure your skills with our proprietary technology, and track your progress on the Shoot 360 mobile app. Shoot 360 Spokane. Unlock your game.
NCAA teams from a season ago that Gonzaga will be facing. Moving up next, another NCAA tournament team. I mean, Gonzaga gets right into the gauntlet with SEC, Oklahoma, and then game three is against Creighton here at home in Spokane. Neither of those first two games, it's been announced what television network's going to carry the game, but I would imagine both of those are going to be, on ESPN or CBS sports network early in the season. But Creighton, they're this game would have been really interesting had it been a season ago, just because you had the Ryan Nemhart factor of having transferred from Creighton, and he exploded into being an All-American level point guard at Gonzaga. But that being said, Gonzaga, Creighton have played a number of times over the years. It always seems to be entertaining game, fast, up and down. And I don't expect that to change. I mean, you're following Gonzaga basketball. You know Gonzaga wants to play fast. They're as good as anybody on the offensive end, but Creighton is very similar in how they want to play fast. They want to space it. They might be a little bit more three-point heavy in regards to how they want to attack offensively. But Creighton's a team somewhat in transition because they've lost Ryan Kalkbrenner to the NBA. They lost Stephen Ashworth, their point guard, who did a lot of great things for them over the last 2 years. So, but they're in the Big East. Last season they were 25-11. They were second in the Big East. So, the returners battle tested. This should be a great game. Moving on to the next one, Arizona State on the road. First game on the road at in Tempe. This is an interesting game because last year when you watched it in Spokane, there wasn't a lot of hype coming in regards to Arizona State. In their expectations for the season, they had a ton of talent, even though a lot of it was young. A couple of those guys transferred. Jaden Quantance, for example, transferred to Kentucky. He was the big man who gave Gonzaga some problems on the interior last year. Adam Miller, who was with Arizona State now, is clearly in Spokane in a Gonzaga Bulldog uniform. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to that game and see how that plays out, how Adam Miller plays against his old team in his old arena. But it's going to be another, I think it's a good test because Bobby Hurley's teams, they normally play at a pretty frenetic pace. We talked about, the pace Creighton wants to play at. Arizona State's very, very similar. They might not have the uh, discipline that Creighton has. But typically, Bobby Hurley's teams play at a fast pace, and they'll have guys that have a lot of firepower. And so, for Bobby Hurley's teams in the past, it's how does he rein in and get them disciplined to play in the way that night that's going to give them success. And when his teams have done that, they've been pretty good. So that's going to be a heck of a test before Gonzaga comes back for a home game against WAC opponent Southern Utah. You're going to see a lot of fans complaining about some of the home games at the Kennel. And look, it's just the nature of college athletics. If Gonzaga wants to continue to build their non-conference resume to be able to get a high seed in the NCAA tournament, to continue to recruit high-level athletes that want to play in big games, you're going to have to fill out your schedule with some games that you clearly are going to be the big favorite going into, especially at home. I mean, everybody would like to play all games against top 25 teams, but at some point, you also have to find ways to fill out the rest of your schedule where you can, I mean, for lack of a better term, you can already pencil in a win that night. And that's kind of what I see with the Southern Utah game. One game after a difficult start to kind of then get yourself, maybe, depending on how the first three of the first four go, back in line to be able to prepare for what I think is going to be a phenomenal event, and that's the Players Era in Las Vegas. Last year was the first year of the Players Era. The the This event is going to begin to be replicated by a number of other tournament organizers, or maybe this one grows to an even bigger event. It's hard to say just yet. But, it's going to start replacing to a certain extent your Battle for Atlantis, your Maui Invitational, the tournament down in Orlando at Disney World, what have typically been the big name Thanksgiving week type tournaments. And the reason the Players Era is going to continue to grow, or other events like this are going to pop up and become successful, is because in the era of NIL and the way the Players Era is structured, there is a financial component to how well your team plays, how well they win. Um, last year, I believe the winning team was able to take home $1 million, and then that gets dispersed based on agreements within the team and then the players now in college who gets what. But there's a large pot for teams that play well down in Las Vegas, the Players era. And Gonzaga's first two games are already slated about who they're going to play. The third is to be determined. So it could end up eventually being 8 teams that Gonzaga plays in the non-conference that were in the NCAA tournament a season ago. But the first two games, Gonzaga plays Alabama and they play Maryland. Alabama, one of the best offenses in the country. Nate Oates, he continues to do an unbelievable job in Tuscaloosa. Space the floor, shoot a ton of threes, get into the paint, draw foul pressure. So, his three angles or areas of attack on the offensive end: get to the paint for layups, get to the paint for fouls, get to the paint, collapse the defense, kick it out for spray threes. And, they're going to be somewhat of a team in transition because they lost Mark Sears, but he continues to just recruit high level guys to replace what they lost year in and year out. Bulldog fans, we know basketball is all about teamwork, hustle, and having someone you can trust in the clutch. Life isn't much different. When challenges come your way, especially family matters, you need a strong team by your side. That's where Danetta and Associates step in. They're more than just a family law firm. They're your advocates, guiding you through the hard files life throws your way with skill and care. In Spokane and beyond, Danetta and Associates are ready to fight for what matters most, your family. Call 509-325-0125 or visit padlawoffice.com to learn more. That's padlawoffice.com to learn more. They were 28-9 last season, 13-5 in the SEC. They were ranked in the top 5 for a lot of last year. I mean, they're a really good basketball team. And then game 2 at the Players era, Maryland, first-year coach Buzz Williams, who has been at Marquette, has been at Texas A&M, is now at Maryland, and they lost their best player from a year ago, freshman Derek Queen, who's now in the NBA. But Buzz Williams, I have no reason to believe that he doesn't have a roster that's going to compete in the Big Ten. They were second in the Big Ten a season ago, 14-6, 27-9 in overall. One name that is interesting, that being a Northwest guy, if you're a listener from the Northwest, a season ago, Isaiah Watts, who was at Washington State, his dad Donald played at University of Washington, and Isaiah Watts is now at Maryland. So that's an interesting, unique connection to Maryland for that game. And again, the third game of the Players era has not been announced. If I remember correctly in what they did last year, it's not necessarily true bracket style tournament play, but after they see how the results come, you get slotted based on, I believe, obviously wins, loss, point differential, to be able to see who you're going to play in that third game. And that is the interesting and unique thing about that will be it's instead of back-to-back games, it's back-to-back-to-back. So very similar to what Maui would be, very similar to what Battle for Atlantis is. And I think one of the great things about those setups during early in the season is for a coaching staff, you can learn what guys can handle on the fly. So game 1, you're going to probably have a really detailed scouting report. Game two, probably a little bit trimmed down scouting report. It might be more personnel and or concept based as opposed to true dialing in of specific calls and actions that a team has. And by game 3, coaches have less time to prepare. Players are clearly fatigued and tired, both physically, mentally, emotionally. So a lot of it comes down to, and this is one reason I think it's so good for these 3 games in 3 days. Coaches can learn what players truly show up in difficult situations, because it's difficult to play 3 games in 3 nights, and you'll be able to see who can figure things out on the fly. Whether or not you have a complete remembrance or knowledge of the scouting report individually and team based, which guys just go out and compete and get it done. And so I think that's a great addition to Gonzaga's non-conference schedule. have a little bit of a break, and then I think one of the most I think it will be one of the most anticipated games for Gonzaga fans in the non-conference is going to be at Kentucky, but it's not in Rupp like it was 2 years ago when they had that big time win to kind of spur them along to make the NCAA tournament 2 years ago and make that run, and it's clearly not in Seattle like it was last year, where Gonzaga had a tremendous first half and then let things slip in the second half before losing in Seattle. But this game will be at Nashville, in Nashville, Tennessee. And I've never been. I've heard unbelievable things. I would imagine, early December, there's going to be a lot of Gonzaga fans wanting to get out of the Northwest and go to Music City, go to Nashville, see Broadway. See some of those bars and restaurants and listen to some music and go cheer on the Zags. So that should be a great game. Mark Pope doing a great job in Kentucky. Um, and he's picked up a really good recruiting class in the portal while he kept Otega Owe as a very versatile player as well. But that's going to be a fun one. Gonzaga comes home for a super quick turnaround. So they play December 5th in Nashville and then December 7th is a home game. So that leads me to believe, don't have confirmation on this, but it leads me to believe that December 5th game against um, Kentucky might be a full national TV game at like say noon or 1 o'clock Eastern time, because 2 days later on Gonzaga plays on the 7th, and you're talking cross country travel. I would imagine that's kind of the case. So December 7th, they got to hurry back to Spokane, play North Florida, which you might remember a few years ago Gonzaga played against North Florida. With Coach Matt Driscoll before he's now headed off to be associate head coach at Kansas State. But they are out of the Atlantic Sun, and the Atlantic Sun's had some good teams in recent years. They've had some tremendous players in years past that have transferred up after a year or two and had success at the high major level. After that, a little bit of a break, and then Gonzaga has another opportunity for a payback game to a certain extent from last year when they play UCLA on the 13th. Gonzaga, UCLA faced off in Intuit Dome last year. Gonzaga lost. They had their chances. They just couldn't get over the hump towards the end of the game. They had some foul issues. They had some miscues, execution wise down the stretch. But December 13th will be against UCLA, and that will be in Seattle. So that battle in Seattle type game that's become really popular is going to be December 13th. UCLA and Mick Cronin, you know what they're about. They're about defensive physicality, toughness, not giving you anything. And on the offensive end, they're pretty simple with their attack, but they're really good with their simplified attack. So Tyler Bilodeau, a really good four-man, and Graham Ike, that's going to be a heck of a matchup. Trent Perry is a sophomore now at the point guard. He was very close to committing to Gonzaga before going to UCLA. I think he's got a tremendous amount of potential. But that should be a good game. Before then, Gonzaga plays Campbell out of the CAA, the Fighting Campbells, on December 17th. Gonzaga hosted Campbell maybe 8, 9 years ago in a home game there as well. But, this one's interesting because John Andrzejczyk, the new coach at Campbell, actually has Northwest ties. He was an assistant at Washington State under Kyle Smith in Pullman, even as soon as about recent as 3, 4 years ago. So that one will be the last lead up before the game that maybe most people in the Northwest are looking forward to in regards to matchups, rivalries in college basketball before conference play kicks off. And that's December 21st. Gonzaga travels down to Portland to play Oregon. And this is a game that lots of people in the Northwest have wanted to see for years, going back to when Ernie Kent was the coach. They have wanted this matchup. Gonzaga and Oregon have met up on the recruiting trails for guys year in, year out. You go back to guys like Luke Ridenour, Luke Jackson, Peyton Pritchard, Jackson Shellstead, who's their current point guard, all guys that Gonzaga recruited heavily. They decided to go to Oregon. They've all put together really good careers. Oregon's made a number of deep NCAA tournament runs under Dana Altman. They made it to the Final Four the same year Gonzaga did in 2017. But Gonzaga and Oregon have never played in the last 20 some years in a non-conference game that wasn't in a tournament setting, whether it would be a preseason non-conf or a preseason tournament or the NCAA tournament. It just has never happened. And it's something that, fans have wanted it to happen, but for whatever reason, it never has. It could be Coach Few's ties of having been an Oregon grad. It could have been former athletic director at Oregon, Pat Kilkenny, and Coach Few's relationship, why it never happened. It's hard to say. There's lots of reasons out there, but this is the game that I think a lot of people have been wanting in the Pacific Northwest. The two best teams over the last 15 years, 20 years or so in college basketball on the West Coast. Will match up December 21st in Portland. So there you have it. Quick rundown, breakdown of Gonzaga's non-conference. Looking forward to another year of the Bulldog broadcast on the Field of 68 Media Network. Again, big thanks to our sponsors, McGilvery Environmental, Denena and Associates Family Law, Cooney's Tie, and ICCU. Thank you for their support. Don't forget to click on their links that will be dispersed throughout the episodes on YouTube to check out more about each of those great companies here in our Spokane area. Take care, and we will be back for another episode soon. We will be breaking down the roster. We'll be breaking down a number of different aspects of what Gonzaga needs to do to be successful this year. And we're also going to be joined by each of the head coaches in the WCC before the season kicks off.